Hi and welcome to my fourth video. For those that are new here, I'm Blythe, an author who lives and works in Saddleworth. All my novels are based in Saddleworth and pull from the lore and legends of this beautiful location. This week I'll be moving on from Upper Mill and looking at the myths and legends that are associated with Greenfield. There are two reasons for this getting finished later than I had hoped. First, the blooming rain. This has played havoc with our outdoor filming schedules. And then we had a strange video experience around the back of Greenfield Mill. The camera worked perfectly until we got to an old barn. Then every image close to that barn seemed to be overloaded in white. Once we moved away from the barn, the images went back to normal. We decided not to go back for a second go. I would like to thank everyone for the fantastic response to last week's video. I honestly couldn't keep up with the messages. This has really spurred me on to cover more of the local knowledge, capturing the folklore and hopefully keeping our history and legends alive. To whet your appetite, we are currently investigating the stories of the werewolf in Tameside and the Black Rider at the site of the gallows in Losley. There's so much to cover. We also won't be leaving Upper Mill for long, as we have now been given more information about the witch at Brown Hills, which is pretty creepy, and also some information about the railway and the station in Upper Mill, so look out for Upper Mill Part 2 soon. Last Friday was Whit Friday. Talking of legends, there was a legend from an old bander that if it rains on Whit Sunday, then it's going to be sunny for the following Whit Friday. That's one legend that didn't work out this year, as it was wet both days. As usual, the greatest free show on earth was a damp, rain-soaked day. It didn't stop us having a good time, and I think I played at about 6 competitions with Diggleby Band. Big shout-outs for all the people I met, and all the stories that people gave me. Whit Friday is mentioned in Saddleworth Sketches by Joseph Bradbury from 1871. It is described as the anniversary of the Sunday schools in this neighbourhood. From early in the morning, crowds of children dressed in their new clothes wend their way to their respective schools, where they assemble and then, led by bands of music, walk in procession with flags and banners to attend service. After service, the procession passes through the neighbouring villages to the school, where refreshments are provided. At some places consisting of a good substantial dinner of roast beef and plum pudding, and at others of currant bread and milk or tea. The entry goes on to say how the afternoon and evening are spent in various innocent recreations, in which the scholars and teachers unite to make Whit Friday all that the children can desire. I don't know if innocent recreations is a way to describe some of the sights I saw this Friday. The Pots and Pans Hill and Monument is one of the most recognisable landmarks in the area. Records show that it was also probably one of the first religious locations in Saddleworth, with signs of a ruined circle of rough stones near Pots and Pans being mentioned in parish records in the 19th century. Druids are meant to have used the Stapley stones near Pots and Pans, but many of these ancient sites were destroyed by construction employees working on the expansion of roads and canals. According to legend, the Druids had also used a large rocking stone for the trial of criminals on the edge of Ravenstone Precipice. This stone was destroyed by miners for use in the Stanage Tunnel. It seems the Druids got their revenge when the miners blew it up, as the flying debris killed at least one of the workers on the spot. Pagan practices seem to have remained in the area, as there are many reports of witches' covens still meeting on the moors, and even the Pagan Society lists it as a site of modern pagan celebration. In the 70s and 80s, Saddleworth seemed to be the centre of a black magic storm. There were local and national press reports of pentagrams in disused mills, and the late Saddleworth MP Geoffrey Dickens raised concerns about the activities of witches in his constituency. There are also reports of ritual items being found in the quarry area of Pots and Pans. The actual Pots and Pans stones are meant to have healing properties. There are several basins, which probably explains the name, hollowed out of the stone. It is said that the largest is capable of holding about 10 gallons of water, and the water cures eye ailments. In 1871, Joseph Bradbury said that the local legend was that the hollows were formed by the rain when the world was drowned. Another healing stone mentioned in the area in the 1800s is the Pancake, which seemed to have a larger hollow called Robin Hood's bed, in which the bodies of the sick were laid in to supposedly cure them of their illnesses. This stone looks like it didn't escape destruction and now probably forms part of a canal lock. There is a folklore tale of giants attached to the hill of Alfin Pike and Alderman's Hill. Alfin and Alder started as good friends, but this friendship ended, as most seem to, over the love of a woman. This was a water nymph by the name of Rimmon, who favoured Alfin over Alder, and their animosity grew so much that it ended in what can only be described as a giant war. This war seemed to basically consist of the two giants throwing rocks at each other over the Dovestones Valley. One of these boulders hit Alfin with a fatal blow, and he died. On seeing his death, Rimmon became inconsolable and threw herself from a rock, ending her life as well. Rimmon's body was taken by fountain nymphs and laid in the same grave as Alfin at the foot of his hill. The trip to the top of Pots and Pans isn't a relaxing climb, but the views are worth it, as you can see. Fairy holes are on the summit of Alderman's Hill, and the legend is that they were first discovered when a dog chased a fox down a hole and never returned. In 1871, Joseph Bradbury mentioned an exploration of these caves by Mr. Robinson, who descended the caves some 60 years earlier. There are many passages and caverns with interesting names such as Piccadilly, Dobby Street, Cupid's Alley and the Devil's Cellar. Legend has it that the fairy holes extend so far downwards that people at the bottom can hear the water of Greenfield Brook rolling over their heads. I didn't fancy testing that legend out this weekend, but if anyone knows more, please let me know. This story is about another Bradbury who lived at a farmhouse called Waterside, which was situated halfway between here on Nooksteer Bridge and the Greenfield Mill. According to the excellent book Saddleworth Murder and Mystery by Vera Winterbottom, the legend goes that children were born on the farm but disappeared when they were old enough to walk. A housekeeper, who was also meant to be his daughter, mysteriously vanished too. It was around that time that tales of a ghostly figure walking from the mill to this bridge began, and residents of the farms reported the ghostly forms of children passing through their homes. All these ghostly happenings seemed to get so bad that an exorcism had to be performed at the location. Many bodies were found, exhumed, and brought to Borshurst, with reports that the whole village witnessed the arrival of the gruesome remains. At this point, it is also worth noting that Vera mentions that there was a persistent rumour of pauper children from 40 Row being buried in a mass grave somewhere in Greenfield. Are the two stories linked? Did Robert Bradbury actually just look after some of these poor children and they died of natural causes? If anyone has any more information on this subject, please comment below or reach out to me via my social media or my website. The Robert Fletcher's Mill has been at Dovestones for over 200 years. It used to make cigarette paper, and at one point nearly 1,000 people were employed there. Apart from offering my husband an IT job once, this company is now probably best known for going out of business practically overnight. Like something from Chernobyl, the place is just sitting there empty and looks like it is just waiting for the employees to come back and start work again. I've put the link to a website which gives more history and some very interesting photographs for this building below. We tried to film there, and as you can see, they really don't want people getting in. Finally, there have been reports of a ghost being seen at the landing jetty of the paper mill, but we couldn't get access to it. The report is of a white figure holding his arms by his side. 2 workers at the mill saw it for several minutes, but as they approached, the figure vanished. The ghost appeared on the spot where a young electrician had died. These steps are unfortunately all that survives of the magnificent house that once stood here. Ashway House was built around 1850 by the sons of Henry Platt of Platt Brothers and Company in Oldham. John and James were both MPs and partners in their father's textile machinery company. On Thursday the 27th of August 1857 they were part of a shooting party that walked up to the moors above Ashway Gap for a day of grouse shooting. While walking across the moors, one of the party slipped and accidentally fired his gun into the calf of James Platt's right leg. The wound was described as being very severe, with parts of the calf laid open to the bone and portions of it blown away. He was carried home, and surgeons did all they could, but he died later that day, aged just 33. Hemorrhage was blamed as the cause of death, the bed and mattress being completely saturated with blood. After this tragedy, the house was put up for sale. In July 1897, an advertisement listed the property as having 2,300 acres, a 33-foot dining room, a drawing room and a billiards room, 6 principal bedchambers and 5 bedrooms on the second floor. It had wine and beer cellars, and outside, in its pleasure grounds, there were stables, kennels and a scientifically levelled tennis court. It was massive. The house and estate were eventually sold to a waterworks committee. In 1914 they offered the house to the Red Cross to be used as a hospital for wounded soldiers of the First World War. It opened as a hospital in January 1916 with 60 beds. This was part of an initiative to open military hospitals throughout the country during the Great War of 1914-1918. The staff comprised a matron and 29 nurses and 32 voluntary cooks, all mainly from Greenfield. In World War II, the house was used to accommodate Italian prisoner of wars. After this, it became neglected, and this was the start of its sad journey into dereliction. It was finally demolished in 1981. I've put links to a website with some wonderful pictures and background details below. It's the Dovestone Heritage Site, and it's well worth a visit. There is a picture on the site that caught my eye. It's from Jeff Frost. Let's zoom in and look at what seems to be the image of a man looking out over the grounds. I don't know if it's real or what the story of this image is, but if I get more details I'll update you. Like most things in this area, the true story is often hidden, and I investigated further into the tales surrounding the house. I found out more, and there's so much more to uncover. Firstly, there is a story from the man who I think was the only person to have been born at Ashway Gap, Arthur Dransfield. He was the son of the gamekeeper and the housemaid. He mentioned strange goings-on at the house, and some nights you could hear the sound of hunting dogs with their master. Later, when the house was being demolished, someone from an archaeological unit was based in a porter cabin on site. He complained of not being able to rest at night because of the sounds of dogs and the sound of a heavy door being slammed. I think I'll take sleeping in a tent at Ashway Gap off my bucket list. There's also reports of a black figure being seen in the woods next to the location of the house in 2013. If any building can be said to haunt a location, it is Billa Jack's or the Moorcock. Even though the building has long since gone and the location is not accessible to the public, it still figures large in the history of this area. In April 1832, the morning mist rolled back to reveal a gruesome double murder. 2 men, a father and son, were the victims. The father was William Bradbury, the actual Billa Jack, which means Bill, son of Jack. He was 84 years old and from all accounts well liked by all. The popularity of the pub is mentioned in 1828 by James Butterworth, who describes it as a noted public house frequented by numerous parties in the summer months. The son was Thomas, who was 46, who stayed with his father in the inn to keep him company. When neighbours came to the inn on an errand, they found the son fatally wounded in a downstairs room. He was unable to speak. Going upstairs, they found the father in bed. He was also gravely wounded, but was able to say 2 words: "Pats, Pats." Witnesses described the whole house as streamed with blood. The son's injuries were mainly to his head, and it was found that his skull was fractured. He died later that day without being able to tell anyone about the circumstances of the attack. His father's injuries were to his face and limbs, but he managed to survive for another day, but unfortunately wasn't able to give any more clues. The supposed murder weapons were found in the house: a horse pistol, a sword stick, and a spade. Stolen from the house had been several articles of clothing and around £7 in money. No one has ever been convicted of this crime, despite a reward of £200 being offered for information. An Irishman named Charles Mullins was arrested but later released after inquiries in Delft. 2 other men, known locally as the Red Bradburys, but no relation to the murdered couple, were also arrested, but finally acquitted after an alibi from one of their relatives. The daughter, who had given them the alibi, had been seen washing blood out of clothes near to the river by her neighbours. Another person under suspicion was Reuben Platt, who by all accounts was the last person to see the victims in good health. Was the old man really saying Pats, or was it Platts? Another interesting aspect that I certainly didn't know about the area at that time was that due to the road building, canal construction and tunnel work, the area was full of navigators, which was a name given to canal construction workers. There are reports of over 2,000 of them in the area at this time, and some of the stories describe the villages as being more like Wild West towns at the time of the gold rush. It was so bad in Delft that local women formed a society to try and deal with the problems. Sounds like Whit Friday, night after night. On top of these characters, there are also reports of wandering bands of travellers who would set up rough camps on the moors of Greenfield and terrorise local travellers. The name given to these people locally was Burnplatters or Platts. With such a large list of potential suspects and forensic science being something beyond the imagination of many at that time, we will never know who committed this terrible act. The unfortunate pair are buried in a grave in St. Chad's Church in Upper Mill. This is normally where the story ends, but we felt we needed a little bit more closure. Firstly, we decided to get back into our mystery machine and locate the grave. This isn't signposted, so you're going to have to watch the final part of what was nearly a 45-minute video of us stumbling about the graveyard in St. Chad's. We have the footage and we'll review later, as it's worth a video just on its own. Whilst we watch this, let me tell you another interesting addition to the tale that we found out whilst digging deeper into the background. On Saturday the 5th of March 1853, a sort of confession was published in the Huddersfield Chronicle. It came from Australia, of all places. An excavator of the canal told a sheep farmer in Melbourne that his friend had committed the murder. His friend, who wasn't named, was selling items from a basket in Saddleworth and had decided to rob the house one night, but the crime ended up taking a turn for the worst. After the murders, they had moved to Leicester, then got caught committing another crime and ended up being deported to Australia. The young man seemed to enjoy the life of crime and ended up being hung for a murder in a place called Hubart Town. The article ends by saying that they hope that now the dark insinuations which are aimed at a certain people in the locality now be laid to rest. Well, that didn't work, as I have never seen this article mentioned in any other research done on the murder. The grave's inscription is listed below the video. And that's it for this week. Don't forget to hit the like button, share or leave comments below. Next week we're going to explore the myths and legends around Mosley, so if you have anything you would like me to cover, please get in touch. Links to my books, website and other interesting things are below. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to all the people who helped make this video happen.